Hi there, Karl. Congratulations on Delikado. I enjoyed the film. It's an eye-opener. So what made you very passionate about this film?
Hi, Janet.
Hello.
Well, I've always been passionate about environmental reporting, and the idea for the film came when I was a journalist based in Manila for Agence France Presse for AFP. I was going to go do a story on ecotourism down in Palawan. It was just an innocuous story just to go down and see how beautiful it was. But the environmental campaigner, my contact for that story, was shot and killed just before I was about to go down. That was Doc Jerry Ortega back in 2011. And so I went down to Palawan to report on his murder, investigate his murder. And then while I was there, I discovered that it wasn't just Doc Jerry who was fighting to protect Palawan's spectacular natural resources. There was a whole bunch of very brave, courageous land defenders who were risking their lives to try and protect Palawan's forests, its mountains, and its seas from being destroyed. And I was immediately very inspired by them. And there was one person in particular who was very charismatic, who jumped out as someone who would, I think, captivate other people's attention, and that was attorney Bobby Chan of the Palawan NGO Network Inc., PNNI. And Bobby had a tree made of chainsaws out the front of his office. And I said, what are those chainsaws about? And he told these stories about how the para enforcers, these community members, would go out into the forests in barefoot or in flip-flops and use effectively the citizens' arrest law to go and affect citizens' arrests, not on the people themselves, but on the equipment that they were using. So they would confiscate these chainsaws from illegal loggers. And then these chainsaws would come back, and he would put this up as a tree, as a statement, as a symbol to people in Palawan, to everyone else. Don't be afraid. I'm not afraid of the threats and intimidation. And I thought that was a pretty dramatic start to an idea for a film, and that's how it began.
And can you describe how long you've been doing the research and documenting on this project, and what were the challenges? I know you were sleeping in the forest with the barefoot foresters.
Yes, yeah. Well, 2011 was when I first went down to Palawan. Then it took a few years for the idea to develop and for me to be able to start filming. And 2017 was when the filming really got underway. And then we were back there repeatedly between 2017 and up until the end of the pandemic, effectively. And so, yeah, we spent a few years going back and forth, spending a long time with the para enforcers, also with Nieves Rosento, another character in the film, and traveling all around Palawan. The challenges in the forests, well, it was challenges we're trying to keep up with Tata and the team. They are incredibly fit. They may have been in flip-flops and bare feet, and didn't have very much food with them, didn't have any protective equipment, but boy, they were tough. And trying to keep up with them going up the mountains was incredibly tough. Just having the sleeping out in the forest with them was incredibly tough, but it was amazing to experience that with them. I was very lucky.
Were you also barefoot like them, and did you also eat the same food that they ate? And were you ever scared for your life?
My feet aren't as tough. I was wearing hiking shoes, and they would effectively get destroyed far faster than the flip-flops that the para enforcers were wearing. So, and their feet, they didn't get foot injuries. They don't get foot injuries. They've become accustomed to it, and they're very tough. So yeah, sorry, I forgot
Were you eating the same food that they were having, and were you scared for your life?
Oh, well, yeah, no, we ate with them, and we lived with them for a long time. So that was one of the joys of sitting in the forest and eating. They don't have a lot of a lot of luxuries or food. It was rice and fish and canned food, and they were they perform heroic missions on little sustenance. I had to drink a lot more water than them. I couldn't drink enough water, but they can go on just a little bit. I felt confident in the way that they operated inside the forest. We understood that there were dangers. They are incredibly experienced. And they have their own training, and they work incredibly well there. When with them in the forest, maybe some fear, but it was also again just feeling very lucky and privileged to be with them. They have a great camaraderie together, and it's a sense of adventure in the forest with them.
Mm-hmm. And can you describe a little bit about the people in the film, like Bobby Chan, Nieves, Rosento, and Tata? How much did you know about them?
Yeah, well, got to know them all very well over the years, and Bobby is a very charismatic man, a great sense of humour, a strong leader. He's very strong with his ideas, and he's deeply impacted by his religious calling and his background, I believe, as growing up with the Jesuit education, so he's very, very strong and very special in that way. And he's also one of the boys. He'd love to sing karaoke and sit around at the headquarters, and he very much loves being with his team members. I met Nieves Rosento when I went to the funeral of one of the para enforcers who was shot and killed in the mountains near El Nido. And Nieves was one of his friends. She's a long-time environmental campaigner, and she spoke at his funeral. She was at his coffin with his daughters as the coffin was being taken into the ground. That's where I met Nieves, and her conviction for the environment, I think, is unwavering. And of course, she has faced some very strong threats, and her ability to face those threats and continue is extremely strong and powerful. Tata is a wonderful man. He's a grandfather. He's a farmer. He's a man of the earth, and he was in Kafku. He's had his military training, back in the day, and we learn in his film that he says that he was involved with illegal logging through these official channels many years ago, and he's looking for redemption, and that's what pushes him through the forest, this redemption. I found that a very, very powerful story.
Can you talk a little bit about Cap Ruben Arzaga, who was shot and killed? Did this happen when you were with him and the land defenders, or can give an update on the case?
So I met cap when on one of the missions, and we went into the forest near El Nido, and he and Tata and others slept in the forest for a couple of days, tracking the illegal loggers. And they got in and they confiscated 2 chainsaws from around the forest of El Nido. And I interviewed him in the forest at that time, and I asked him why he was doing it. And he said that he was doing it so when his daughters grow up, all the big trees won't be gone, that they will still be there. He was a very humble man, and he was driven by this desire to protect his local environment for his family. It's still hard to talk about it because 6 months later, he was shot and killed in the forest near El Nido doing the same thing. And to see his daughters bury him was just tragic.
Yeah. When was the last time you were in Palawan?
Just before the pandemic. I haven't been able to get back since the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. And you were a former journalist, and now you're a director, filmmaker. How was the transition for you, and what was the most challenging?
Well, I'm still a journalist and still working here, based in Hong Kong. And the challenge is over the past few years, has just been trying to manage the team of editors and the whole post-production team remotely during the pandemic. We've had editors in America and Australia, teams all around the world. So it's just been a very practical thing, has been a challenge in that respect. In terms of the storytelling, it's obviously a much more complex way of delivering the story. Yet at the same time, the core of it is still very much the same. I think the strength of journalism, or the strength of filmmaking, is in the characters and telling their story. I did articles on the Paran forces for AFP back in 2017, and in actual fact, the core and the essence of the story is still very, very much the same. It's just a much more complex way of presenting it.
And how did you meet Marty Sihuko and Michael Collins and KaraMagsanocAlikpala?
So I met Marty and Michael initially through their first film on the Philippines called Give Up Tomorrow. Through my work as a journalist, I interviewed them and got to know about what they were trying to do with the impact of the film after it came out. And we became friends. Marty was coming through the Philippines, we became friends, and then that's how our relationship developed. Marty and Kara have collaborated on films together, and I was lucky enough to be introduced to Kara through Marty and Michael.
Mm-hmm. Has this been shown to the government officials, and what do you think would be the reaction?
No, it hasn't yet been shown to the government officials. We did endeavour to get their side of the story, and so how will they see it? I guess I can't comment too much about that. I hope that people will see this film and see it through. We've endeavoured to apply journalistic standards, and that it's a very fact-based approach to the film. So I hope it will be seen through that lens.
The Bobby Chan's legacy, and do you think it will continue, or has it stopped after they confiscated all the chainsaws?
Well, if you go to the PNI Facebook page, you will still see that that the para forces with very little money through the pandemic have still been going out into the forest and confiscating chainsaws. A lack of money is a hindrance, but it won't stop them. So they're still fighting on, and Bobby really is driven by the belief that you take one chainsaw out of the forest and that chainsaw is not going to be cutting down those trees. And so they're still striving to do that one chainsaw at a time.
Mm-hmm. And what do you hope this documentary will will do to the audiences that will watch it?
Well, I hope that it will obviously raise awareness and understanding about what is happening in Palawan, whether it's for people from the Philippines or abroad. There is an image of this incredibly beautiful, wonderful place. And it certainly is. There are these other elements that I guess we're showing in this film that they might not necessarily know about. So, if they see that and they want to be better educated about where the wood is coming for the tourist resorts, what is happening to the corals, rather than just enjoying its beauty, but maybe working themselves to try and protect it, doing something to protect it. More broadly, the story of Bobby, Tata, and Nieves is not an isolated story. In fact, their struggles are the same struggles that land defenders are having in Brazil, in Colombia, in Honduras, all around the world. Land defenders are being killed in record numbers around the world. 227 land defenders were reported killed in 2020. Each year, that's a record. Each year it goes up. There's been an average of 4 land defenders killed every week since the 2015 Paris Climate Change Accords were signed. And when you think about this around the world, land defenders are on the front lines of our battle to fight climate change and to save our biodiversity. And so the struggles of Bobby, Tata, Nieves, land defenders around the world are so crucial to all of us living in a planet that has restrained climate change. So essentially, I hope that this will help to raise awareness about these issues, not just in Palawan and the Philippines, but globally, and be used to help drive messages to protect and empower land defenders around the world.
And this documentary is going to have its world premiere at the Hot Docs Festival ahead of the Philippine national elections on May 9. Was there a reason for this, or what's the significance of that date?
There was no significance on our behalf. We sort of left to the fates of the festival gods. We submit to the festivals and get selected or not selected, as the case may be. And we were lucky enough to get selected by Hot Docs, and the date, whether it coincided with the elections, wasn't really a part of that consideration.
Are you now inspired to do more documentaries or films, and what kind of films are you planning to do?
I would, yes, I'm definitely inspired to do more. It's been an amazing journey, and I hope I can make more films. I would like to continue my themes about the environment and climate change, and also trying to present stories of hope and inspiration, which I believe, even with all the challenges that are, or maybe because of all the challenges we're showing in our film, it really is one that I think people can watch and come away with a feeling of being inspired by the subjects. And I would like my other films to also have positive messages that can inspire. and for people to do something to protect our planet, our environment, because just I guess I know as a journalist, this constant driving of bad messages, all the doom and gloom, people turn off, don't they? They don't want to, just hear how bad things are all the time. So the challenge, I think, is to try and, show films and messages of hope and inspiration.
And it's also Earth Month, so it's just perfect to be shown.
Yes, that is good timing.
So do you see yourself doing another collaboration with Marty, Michael, and Kara?
Sure, that could certainly be on the cards. To be honest, I haven't looked further than the next couple of weeks. We've really just finished, the making of the film. We're in the whirlwind of getting, this out to the world. But afterwards, I'd love to make a film, and they've been an amazing team to work with. And I'd certainly love to consider that again.
Mm-hmm. And what other film festivals is this documentary participating?
There's going to be a series of them throughout America over throughout May and June. In New York, there's the Human Rights Watch festival. There's Mountain Film in Colorado, and then we have other festivals in Asia Pacific, and hopefully in Europe in the second half of the year.
Mm-hmm. And may I ask also, your heritage, Malakunas, sounds Tagalog or Filipino?
Yes, I got that a lot. No, it's Lithuanian, actually, Lithuanian heritage. Some people said it would sound like Malakas, but no, it's not.
Do you know any Tagalog words now, since you've been in the Philippines for a long time?
Konti lang.
Konti lang. Well, thank you very much, Karl, for talking to us, and I'll let you go. And good luck on all your other projects.
Thank you very much, Janet. Pleasure
Thank
to talk
you.
to you.